Evening. Hello out there. So bear with me. This is kind of an impromptu way I'm doing this tonight. After some discussions that I've had with people and things that I've been rolling around in my brain for a very long time, uh, I've wanted to kind of get this on video so I could potentially do a more formalized version later to deal with. This is an issue that impacts every level of our society. It's an issue that really is the foundation for every other ill in our society. My approach tonight is going to be one that is, I've taken some loose notes. I'm going to probably be doing shorter videos. And as I formulate my thoughts a little better, I'll probably do revisions here and there, but I'm doing a loose breakdown. And my approach to this is something that hasn't been done before in my view regarding divorce and how it's handled in society. There was a documentary that came out several years ago, I think it was 2014, called Divorce Corp, which dealt it was by Dr. Drew Pinsky, and it dealt specifically with um the monetary side of the divorce industry as it pertains to legal proceedings, revenue generated, and I'll touch a little bit on that. And in the link in my description, I posted a link to the trailer for the film, and you can find it. It's pretty informative, and there's a lot of data and statistics in there. Just talks about certain things. So, and my approach is going to be a little bit more guttural, uncompromising, unflinching. I'm not here to throw anybody under the bus, but I'm here to just talk about the mechanics of the divorce process. Um, I will say that as much as I want to go into in my situation, did go through a divorce. It wasn't my choice. Um, but there was a lot of undercurrents of dysfunction in the connection with the other person. And it's been a pretty unhealthy, nasty environment. And I'll leave it at that. Which is not throwing anybody to the rest. It's just saying that this is the environment in which the divorce occurred. So tonight's this first video that I'm doing is kind of going to be giving a little bit of a history lesson on the family. I'm going to start with you can't talk about divorce if you don't understand what came before it, and it's the family and the purpose of a family and the function of a family. So, in any society that you have, the foundational unit of societal structure is the family unit. Every single human being is born into a family. I mentioned this on a previous video where you have a mother and a father, or you have, either it's you could even have it through in vitro fertilization or something like that, or something of that nature. Since we are not asexual creatures, since we do not um, produce asexually, there are two genders which produce another human being. You can't get away around it. You can't grow a child in the lab without a one of the genders of the two genders contributing some way somehow to the creation of that newborn, that newly conceived child. So the condition of that family unit to which the child is born into is the foundation from which that child learns to adapt to societal structure, societal norms. If the child is born into a healthy environment where they are given healthy tools to adjust to an ever-changing world, they're going to have a higher chance of emotional success, emotional maturity, potentially, you know, physical success in other areas. They have a better shot of being well adjusted in life. Now, if that child is born into a dysfunctional environment or lack of parents or lack of certain things because both parents contribute in an ideal world to the emotional health of that child. If a child isn't getting that, their likelihood of being maladjusted is higher. uh, there's a lot of other issues that come with that, so that when they get older, the likelihood of them contributing dysfunction to the society around them as opposed to health is higher. So you have to ask yourself, well, what is a family? The role of a family plays in society. It's an environment where children learn about how to function in society as a whole. And like I said, if children are born into a healthy environment, they have a higher chance of contributing health back into the environment and society as they go. Or if they are in an unhealthy environment, higher degree of unhealthiness will be spread out there. Um, Children of divorce, statistically, and you can find these statistics all online. Everything I'm saying here is relatively well known. Children of divorce have a higher percentage of having divorced themselves. Um, they have a higher instance of teen pregnancy, lack of a stable home life. You tend to get involved in emotional connections without a sense of maturity or a sense of understanding. And a lot of times, with that risky behavior comes teen pregnancy out of that. There's a higher crime rates among children in single parent households. For lack of that balance, children will tend to either lash out or find negative sources to express their anxieties, their emotions, and they a lot of times will get involved into more criminal behavior, dysfunctional behavior later on. Um, in broken homes, there's higher potential of drug use. There's higher instances of mental illness, and then there's also higher suicide rates in broken homes. And a lot of it's because of the emotional uncertainty associated with this imbalance where, you know, there should be a sense of balance, a mother and a father. But mothers and fathers are different. That's by the nature. You can't say, well, I'll be both mother and father to him. I'll be both father and mother to him. You can, but at the end of the day, if whatever gender is your child, there's going to be unique experiences unique to that child's experience, that if the child is an opposite sex of you, something you just can't identify with, you can't grasp. And so even though you give it your best shot, there will be some experiential things that you will have no clue that that child's dealing with. And that's true of either genders. And if you say, oh, that's not true, then you're denying and you're lying to yourself the value of both parents in a society, into the well-adjusted nature, because we are not all the same creatures. We are not all the same. We all have inherent unique traits that are different and beneficial, unique to their style. So now that we've kind of described what the purpose of a family is, the purpose of a family at its core being is to bring children into the world, raise them to then go out into the world and contribute, hopefully, a healthy contribution to society to keep society going. And then as they get older, to keep the species alive, to keep the health alive, to keep the best of our species alive, to contribute to society in a positive way. If you're born in a negative environment, the likelihood, without a lot of work, the likelihood of contributing negative to society will be a much greater if you don't deal with those issues. So the person society, is to contribute to the social order that we've addressed and negative contributions to that social order. Now, there's some other things here. You have to ask yourself, well, okay, so we have a family. Then we have the issue of marriage itself. Well, what is marriage? Marriage is a social contract between two people to bind together. Now, in a healthy environment, to bind together to create a family unit to hopefully raise children and contribute. So, marriage is the social contract, the act of marriage. Well, people say, well, you can have a family without being married. Sure, you can, but I'm going to ask a question. If we want to raise people of integrity, of honor, of positive nature, to be positive contributors to society, and part of being a positive contributor to society is honesty, truthfulness, integrity, following commitments, being trustworthy. Part of being trustworthy is when you make a commitment or an agreement, how well you follow that agreement, how well you choose to follow the agreement you set towards somebody else shows a sign of character, shows a sign of honor, shows a sign of trustworthiness, and a sense of safety with that person. If they can honor their contracts through thick and thin, then the likelihood of them being trustworthy and somebody you can rely upon to help you get through life is higher. So if you enter into a family agreement with no sense of contract, no sense of obligation, the inherent nature is that there's not necessarily a trust factor that can be had. Now, anybody can always break a contract, but the hope is that if you commit to a contract of marriage, you will honor the contract because by honoring it, it sets not only to your children, oh my gosh, that this is, we honor our words, but it also says to the society at large, oh, okay, this is how we do it. Now, so when you have a contract, a social contract, it helps society move in a smoother, healthy way, hopefully. This now a lot of this is idealized. We live in a broken world that's not perfect. So this is shooting for an ideal, knowing how difficult it is, knowing that it's not impossible, but it is difficult. Especially if you have two people who get into a, a an agreement of some sort and they both have different ideologies about contracts. So you have marriage as a social contract. Family is basically the social unit, and then marriage is the contract that binds that social unit. Now, there are two ways to think about marriage. You have the spiritual side of marriage, and you have the legal societal side. The spiritual side is the moral, ethical understandings of why you're binding your life to this other person. You'll have a religious undertone to it. Your understanding of morals, your understanding of how to function in society, that's encapsulated in the religious spiritual side of marriage. A lot of times people will get married in a church and then they'll say their vows, and usually the vows are based on their spiritual understandings of what the unity, the bond of marriage is. Then you have the legal, earthly, mechanical, social functioning side of marriage, which is a legal contract, which has its own set of rules. And they're two different things. This is why you can get married in a church symbolically of your choice, but it's not recognized by the state and its laws in a legal capacity until it's registered with the state. Likewise, you can get married in a legal contractual way in the eyes of the state without ever having to enter into a church. There's two facets here. And there's been this argumentation over the years about why government acknowledges marriage to begin with. You have some people, and I'm not here going to get on the debate except to say there are some people that say uh, religion, God wants marriage this way. So the laws need to reflect what God says in his holy book of my choice, Christian, whatever. And so I'm going to vote, and I think that the laws should say that the laws regarding marriage should be this way based on my religious beliefs. Then there's another faction of society that says, now, wait a minute. No. If that religion tells me that I can't get married because I want to love this person and want to do this, the laws can't tell me who to love and who not to. So the law can't, you know, stop me from getting married. Now, there's some validity to both in certain aspects, but I think both are the wrong decision. Here's why. Earthly laws are not set up especially in the United States. The way our laws are written are not set up to acknowledge inherently religious precepts as the reasons for the law's existence. So to say, my God in the Bible says, a man and a woman can't be married. Okay. While that's true in the Bible, our laws are not written to respect specifically Christian religion as a way of governance. And I can get into the whole First Amendment thing, the freedom of free exercise, and the establishment clause, and that's a whole other tangential discussion about the free exercise clause versus the establishment clause of the First Amendment when it comes to religion. Now, on the other side of it, you have some other people saying, well, the government can't stop me from loving who I want to, and getting married. That's a true statement. And here's why. The government has no mechanism to regulate or even begin to quantify what love is and what it looks like and how it's displayed. Love is a nebulous term that has so many different definitions in action. So for the people over here to say you can't stop me from loving who I want, that's true, but that's a bad argument as opposed to the law. So then what do we do with this? You've got one people over here that they've got a bogus argument regarding using love as a metric to determine the law of marriage. You have people over here saying God, which is a bogus argument in terms of the law and the marriage. What do we do? It all comes down to understanding why governments acknowledge marriage to begin with. And in order for that to be understood, you have to understand why governments exist to begin with. Sun Tzu, The Art of War, and I talked about this in my other videos. Sun Tzu, The Art of War, talks about the purpose of government, and I'm paraphrasing here because it's all throughout the book, is to grow power, to gain power if you don't have it, to maintain it if you have it, and grow it by any means necessary. All three of those by any means necessary. And the greatest tool of growing power, maintaining power, and establishing power is through monetization, money, wealth, material possessions. Any government body from the dawn of man to now, except if you're in a socialist environment, governments don't inherently produce anything. Governments are the great middle manager. Citizens produce through their labor, through their actions, produce goods and services that they then share here and there through nations, through neighbors, whatever, buy and sell things. Governments don't do that. So, how does a government maintain power to help with other disbursement of goods and services if they don't produce any goods and services themselves? Either they take over the means of production through socialism, so the government then controls all that, or if it's in the hands of the people, they monetize the exchange of goods and services between parties. And while that transaction is happening, as money, goods, and services are being transferred between parties, they make money on the transaction. It's called making money in motion. Doggy, my dog is whining. So what happens is, as long as money stays moving between parties, you'll see governments tax, like if you win a lottery, or every time money moves from your employer to you, the government takes a bit out of it for taxation. Or you go to a bank and you have service fees. Everybody finds a way to tax money in transit. That's how governments and businesses above and beyond that make money. Leota, come here, doggy. And so with doing that, that's how, since they don't produce anything themselves. So brings us back to, why do governments even begin to regulate marriage? They can't do it for God. They can't do it for love. It's to monetize the exchange of property, goods, and services between two parties who want to join their assets together. Once they join their assets together and now create two income revenue streams, the government can then regulate the money that they earn or any assets shared between them and other family members, and monetize the process through taxation, through fees and whatnot. So that is inherently is why governments, especially in the United States, acknowledge marriage to begin with. It's monetization. And I think in terms of that right there, now that I've kind of now I got guinea pigs too. Now that I've kind of established the reason governments acknowledge marriage for monetization, I think I'm going to stop there. And I'm going to start a new video on the next phase of monetization of the marriage process. So thank you for watching this video. It was only about 25 minutes. I'm going to do another. These are going to be a series of short videos. But once I get that done, then I'll go into the next phase, and the next phase will be literally on the monetization of the marriage pact, the exchange of wealth, and I'm slowly moving into the issues of divorce. All right, have a good one, and I'll catch you guys later.